So now for this tutorial, this is all about actually putting the designs into practice and actually modelling them. So as you can see, we've used a range of different modelling techniques, from using polygons to subdivisions and NURBS. So we've used the whole range of modelling surfaces. So if I just go into Maya just briefly, as you can see, for the titanium character we've used polygons for this one. Okay, so that's been made out of polygons. And for this particular character, Argon, this one's made out of subdivisional surfaces. And in terms of the set, parts of it's been made out of polys, but some of it's been made out of NURBS as well. So some of this is NURBS surfaces. So obviously we had to take into account how flexible or what was the easiest process to make these characters. So in terms of the models, we had to decide how we were going to actually create these and what kinds of geometry we were going to use, and that was determined by how the actual character would animate or what style the character was, really. So there's just a range of all the characters within Maya. For things like UV texture mapping, so things like titanium, the body and the face texture map, that was created with a UV map. So we exported that out, then we applied that or reattached that to the surface. So in this circumstances, as you can see, here's the character and it's got the texture map applied to it. If we go to the hypershader, you'll be able to see that the body in the hypershader is the actual texture map which is applied to the actual geometry. In terms of the plutonium as well, we exported a UV texture map, as you can see, textured that. You can do it through Paint Effects. You just export out the UV snapshot and you can then reapply that back to the actual geometry. Interestingly, this character Californium, what we did for this particular one is we exported out the UV maps for the head. However, what we did in turn is we actually created another texture. So as you can see, we've got one expression with an O, an expression with a smile, and that allows us then to actually animate the facial expressions. We've done it through animating texture maps. So if we just take a look at the character in Maya, is the Californium character. I'm just going to go to the hypershader, and as you can see, the head shader has the texture map there, and if we've got the source image in there, that's dot one. But basically I've got use image sequence and we can actually animate the texture now. So as you can see, the mouth is now moving, and that's just really animating texture maps. So that's another thing that we decided to do. In addition to that, so as part of this set design, we had to texture the speakers and the background and the floor. We also used something called transparency maps. So instead of actually modelling the whole thing, we just used a flat plane and had transparency running through it. But the speakers really are just 3D objects with UV texture maps. So if we just go to the stage, I'm just going to come in here. As you can see, I'll just move around to this side. The actual speakers, they are just applied on with the planar mapping, and the floor texture, that's applied on with UV mapping as well. Same with the background for the set. Transparency maps for the lights, this is a plane, as you can see, so it's not a three-dimensional shape, it's 2D, and it's got a transparency map, so we can use flat planes and we can put transparency through it, and this also quickens up any rendering time when we create transparency maps. Same for this side as well. So there you go, transparency maps. So that was for the stage itself. Lastly, what we had to do with the characters as well, we had to rig the characters. So we had to make sure that when we passed them on to an animator, they were rigged, they had controls as well, so it made it easier for the animators to be able to understand how the character should be animated and keyframe. So if we take a look at the silver character, for instance, as you can see, is silver, and it's got controls here and here. So we've got a head control to move the head. We've also used constraints, aim constraints. So when we move this up, you'll notice that the eye on the left follows the actual circle, as you can see. So that's got an aim constraint on it. So it's been rigged like some of the other characters, so you can actually animate these quite simply, and with the controls you understand what you're actually animating. So we know we're animating the elbow, for instance, there. So it's nicely rigged, simple to see. As to show you the joints, so the joints are within the character as well. We have a skeleton which is bound to the geometry. So it's a really good rig for you to use.